Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We are going to synthesize the absolute ultimate blueprints for business growth. We're bringing together two massive, powerhouse methodologies: Alex Hormozi's framework for crafting those irresistible Grand Slam offers, and Jordan Belford's straight-line system for absolute influence and sales persuasion. So if you've ever found yourself wondering how to build a product that people literally feel stupid saying no to, and then perfectly executing the pitch to actually close that deal, well, you are in exactly the right place.
Right, let's dive right into this with a pretty crazy story. Picture this. It's Christmas Eve 2016. Alex Hormozi is sitting in a movie theater, but he is definitely not watching the screen. His resting heart rate is just pounding at nearly 100 beats per minute, and he's staring at this devastating number, a bank balance of exactly $1,036.14. Just weeks prior, a business partner had basically wiped out his life savings, a payment processor was holding his remaining funds hostage, and he just wired his very last bit of cash to pay his salesman's commission. I mean, he was quite literally at rock bottom.
So he goes home, right? He tells his girlfriend, Layla, they have absolutely nothing left. But instead of panicking, she gives him this ride-or-die support with this exact quote. She said, "I would sleep with you under a bridge if necessary." And that push, it changed everything. The very day after Christmas, using a credit card with a $100,000 limit, Hormozi launched 6 gyms simultaneously. That desperate leap, fueled by the specific principles we're about to cover, skyrocketed his business from that miserable little bank balance to $1.5 million a month in revenue in a single year. That is a 3,600% ROI.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. 1. The hierarchy of success. 2. The Grand Slam offer. 3. Enhancing perceived value. 4. The straight line system. 5. Tonality and state management. And finally, 6. The art of looping.
Section 1. The hierarchy of success, laying the foundation.
So Hormozi has this really explicit rule for success. Before you build an offer, and honestly long before you try to sell it, you've got to understand the natural hierarchy of the market. Just look at these steps. Entrepreneurs will waste years of their lives trying to master persuasion and sales tactics, completely ignoring the fact that they're trying to sell in a terrible market. Finding a starving crowd with massive pain, that is way more important than your offer. And your offer is far more important than your sales pitch. Think of it like being an expert pilot in a plane without an engine. If the market isn't there, your persuasion skills literally won't matter.
Section 2. The Grand Slam offer. Escaping commoditization. Now, assuming you've found a growing, easy-to-target market that actually has purchasing power, it's time to build your Grand Slam offer. Look, if you sell a product that someone can get in 100 other places, you've got a commoditized offer. You're forced to compete on price, which just drives your margins straight down to zero. The average entrepreneur lowers prices to compete, and that completely destroys quality. But the expert? They create a category of one. By combining unmatched value, premium pricing, and unbeatable guarantees, your prospect's choice is no longer between you and a competitor. It's between your amazing offer or nothing at all. And interestingly enough, charging a premium price creates this virtuous cycle. It increases your client's emotional investment, it gets them better results, and it multiplies your margins, so you can actually serve them better.
So the absolutely crucial point here is maximizing what Hormozi calls the value equation. Your goal is to drive up that top half, the numerator. You want to maximize the client's dream outcome and their perceived likelihood of actually achieving it. But the real magic, that happens in the denominator. You have to drastically reduce the time delay to getting results, along with the effort and sacrifice required by the client. Since this is division, as the time and effort required get closer to zero, the perceived value of your offer practically approaches infinity.
Section 3. Enhancing perceived value. The tools of demand.
All right, so now that your core offer is built and the value equation is balanced in your favor, you can actually supercharge demand without even changing the core product. You can artificially enhance perceived value using these 5 rapid-fire tools. Scarcity limits the supply, which creates that fear of missing out. Urgency limits the time they have available to buy. Bonuses stack on extra value. Guarantees reverse the risk of the purchase entirely. And naming uses magnetic formulas to draw in your specific target avatar. These are insanely powerful psychological drivers.
And when we talk about bonuses, Hormozi is absolutely adamant about this. You should never, ever discount your main offer just to close a sale. No way. Instead, you use bonuses to increase the perceived value. Present the components of your offer as stacked, entirely separate additions. There was actually this fascinating study where participants rated the exact same wine as tasting significantly better simply because they were told it was expensive. Higher prices paired with stacked bonuses directly enhance the perceived value in the buyer's mind. It's a real game changer.
Okay, so you've done the work. You've got this irresistible Grand Slam offer targeting a starving market, but here comes the reality check. How do you physically get them to say yes when you're actually on the phone or sitting face-to-face with them? This is exactly where we transition to the final step of our hierarchy, persuasion.
Section 4. The straight line system, the 3 10s.
To actually close the deal and turn that amazing offer into real cash, we look to Jordan Belfort's straight line system. And this whole thing hinges on a core concept called the 3 10s. Before anyone is going to buy your Grand Slam offer, they have to be at an absolute 10 out of 10 on the certainty scale across 3 distinct elements. First, they must absolutely love the product. Second, they have to trust you as the expert who's going to fulfill their needs. And third, they must trust and connect with your company. If any of these are sitting at, say, a 5, they're on the fence. Any objections you hear are really just smokescreens for uncertainty in one of these 3 areas.
Section 5. Tonality and state management, the unspoken language. Now, building that certainty, it isn't just about reading words off a script, because human beings buy based on emotion and then justify that decision with logic. How you sound and how you act is way more critical than the actual words you're saying. Listen to this. You have exactly 4 seconds over the phone to establish 3 things. You need to prove that you are sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and an absolute expert in your field. If you don't nail those 3 things in the first 4 seconds, the prospect is instantly going to perceive you as a waste of their time, and you've already lost the sale. And the reason that 4-second window is so intense is because of this breakdown right here. Your actual words, they only make up 10% of your communication. The other 90% is entirely unconscious. It's split evenly right down the middle between your tonality and your body language. You've got to utilize what Belfort calls bottled enthusiasm in your voice. That means enunciating clearly, really stressing your consonants, and using targeted active listening cues to build this massive unconscious rapport before you even get to your pitch.
But let's be real, maintaining that level of enthusiasm all day is tough. So, to make sure you always sound sharp as a tack, top closers use state management, specifically NLP anchoring. Belfort himself uses an olfactory anchor. He'll take a big whiff of an essential oil inhaler right when you closes a massive deal, linking that smell directly to the rush of success. Then, right before he picks up the phone to call a brand new prospect, he smells it again. It instantly floods his nervous system with peak emotional confidence, so he can completely dominate those crucial first 4 seconds.
Section 6. The art of looping, closing the sale. Okay, so once you've established massive rapport and pitched your Grand Slam offer, the presentation is basically over. But honestly, the real sale doesn't even begin until they hit you with their very first objection. The precise syntax of the sale flows exactly like this. You dominate those first 4 seconds, you gather intelligence to find their deepest pain points, you present your irresistible offer, and then you enter the looping phase. See, when a prospect says, "Let me think about it," they aren't actually going to think about it. They're just uncertain. Looping is how you systemically rebuild that certainty.
Instead of tackling an objection like, "I need to talk to my wife," head on, you gracefully deflect it. You just say, "I hear exactly what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea?" See what happens there? It completely bypasses the objection and brings them right back onto the straight line. It gives you the perfect opening to repitch the benefits and rebuild their logical and emotional certainty in the product.
Ultimately, your goal in this looping phase is to conquer their action threshold. That's the unconscious barrier, the collective level of certainty they need to feel before they are comfortable handing over their credit card. By continually looping, keeping your tonality perfectly dialed in, and gently using their primary pain points as an urgent motivator, you systematically lower that action threshold. You just keep looping until crossing that line into a yes becomes the absolute easiest and most logical decision in the world for them.
And that, my friends, brings us to the end of our synthesis. We've taken you all the way from a desperate, heart-pounding $1,036 bank account to mastering the ultimate value equation. You now know exactly how to build a Grand Slam offer, and you have the straight-line tactics to pitch it with absolute bottled enthusiasm. The market is waiting, the blueprints are right there in your hands, which leaves you with just one really profound question for your own business journey. What are you going to sell? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you take this knowledge, go out there, and build something truly incredible.